Kyle here from All Media Reviews, here to do albums of the year 1983. Not an amazing year or anything like that. One or two items, though, I was going to mention. The Dirty Loops single Runaway just got uploaded, the video, and it comes out on Spotify tomorrow. Really good. You know, Dirty Loops are a band I don't know. I really like them, although they're kind of a one kind of mood thing. I mean, they're great musicians and stuff, so. But they're probably going to put out a new album at some point this year, but I'm not going to be able to catch them on tour, unfortunately, at least on this current tour. But yeah, Runaway is a good single. Pepe Deluxe's single, the double single, came out the other day too. I'm liking it, but not loving it. I mean, I fanboy, and I'm maybe a little critical of it. Two songs. The second one, I think the first one I liked a little more than the second. The first one had like this kind of soul singer, but what is it? Let's see. And then the name of the album, yeah, it's called Sweet. Let's see. Everybody Is and Sweet Baby Son. I mentioned on last week. The album itself is coming out in the summer, called Comic Sonics. Comix space Sonix. So I'm still really excited for that. The first single I liked more than these two, but they're not bad. Again, I don't know. I think it's kind of hard to believe you have a standard of you have a few records, especially one record from a band that you love, and then after that they're trying to kind of follow up and live up to it. And the last record was good, Phantom Cabinet Volume 1, but anyway. And then The Warning and Ben Sinister, I think I mentioned Ben Sinister's album's coming out next month, and the track list is coming out. It's February, or February, 11th of April. It's called Who is it? Well, Mostly Great Things, and it's eight of the four double singles are all on it. So it's only four actually like unheard songs at this point, but they're all really good songs. So I'm not upset about that. That comes out April 11th. But The Warning, new album, Keep Me Fed, I think it's called. Yeah, Keep Me Fed, comes out June 28th. And the track list, I guess, has come out, but the new single comes out tomorrow too, the double single. Hell I Awake, whatever it's called, and then and it's it's just in Spanish, but anyway, maybe I don't know if I'll talk about that more on the stream next week. Probably not, but yeah, the song's sick. Anyway, that's something just to look forward to. So I'll move on to 1983. 1983, like I said, it was kind of... these early 80s years are just kind of mediocre to me. There's some decent records, but not like a lot of my favorites. Other than one record on this list, I can definitely say is my favorite from the band. But anyway. So starting out, I don't have a lot of physical copies of some stuff. I got some... I wanted to show one other record, though. What did I do with it? Oh, it's right here, I think. Well, from the 82 list... Here's my wife's copy of 1999. Oops. I don't want to be showing that yet. Yeah, so that I do have it. She has a physical. There's a physical copy in this household. She also has the CD, but I couldn't track it down when I was making the 82 video a few weeks ago. My apologies. So, 25 albums. Not really. A lot of these are just kind of vague, but you have Journey's Frontiers at 25. That's the album with Separate Ways and Faithfully. Styx's Kilroy was here, of course, Mr. Roboto, and yeah, I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time with it. It's kind of a meme, but I don't absolutely despise it. But I mean, compared to the stuff Styx did before that, it hasn't really gotten a lot of play out of me for that reason. Number 24, number 23, Weird Al Yankovic's self-titled debut album, Weird Al Yankovic. Which I don't own, but I know some of the songs on it, like Rocky Road and is it Ricky? Yeah, it was a parody of Mickey. I can't remember if another one, Rides the Bus, made that or not. But anyway, he also did the one that was featured in the movie with Daniel. What's his name from Harry Potter? Was it? The Knack parody. I think it was the Knack. My Bologna. Yeah, so I mean, it had some memorable parodies, but I'll say the next record was a lot bigger deal to me. So anyway, number 23. Number 22. All right, so I gotta make sure I don't screw this up too much, but we have the debut album from Madonna, again borrowing the other half's better copy. And I thought I'd listened to this a few times. I really hadn't. It's got 3 really sort of trademark singles of hers: "Lucky Star," "Borderline," and "Holiday." Then I guess "Burning Up" was also released as a single. It's okay, but I mean, those 3 songs, of course, are, staples. And it's actually the only album of hers that's bolded on Rate Your Music, which is weird. But anyway, number 20, 22, Madonna's self-titled debut album, came out in '83. Number 22. Number 21, this is an album that I own. I don't remember why I bought it, because I was just looking for the original pressing and everything. It's XTC's Mummer, but kind of understood. Ladybird's one that I think I have some recollection about. Beating of Hearts. And, those early to mid-'80s XTC records, like early, like post-English Settlement, pre-Skylarking records, and I have some of them. That's the reason why people got rid of them, because they're not as good. But anyway. Yeah, I mean, someday this record may be one I more favor. I still feel like they got better once they got to Skylarking, and those records from Skylarking on, whatever it is, the 3 records I think of, were the peak of their career. So, anyway, number 21. Number 20, some people think this is a bit low compared to some other stuff that's ahead of it, I suppose, in some ways. Yes's 90125. I paid, I think, $1 for this at a record show many years ago, like 20-some-odd years ago. I do like Changes, and I thought that was the last song, but it's not. Changes is clearly, to me, the best track, my favorite track on here. Heard Owner of Only Heart a million times. Of course, it's the first album with, Trevor Rabin. You had Trevor Horn producing it, but not performing. I've grown to like Leave It, even though I was annoyed by that song when I first heard it. So, it can happen. Hearts, I just found this to be so saccharine at points. And then I'll say this, the records that followed, I think I actually don't like as much as this, which is weird. Anyway, 80s, yes. A lot of it, it's always been... John Anderson is coming here with the Band Geeks and with an ELP, with the turn of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which this summer, August 7th, up in the St. Cloud area. I forget the name of the venue, but I'm looking forward to that if I end up going. Number 19, so that was 20. Number 19, we see Pink Floyd, The Final Cut, which kind of a continuation of The Wall. It's shorter than The Wall. It's got a few tracks I still enjoy, like Fletcher Memorial Home, which Shadow Gallery referenced, and was it Gunner's Dream? Your Possible Past. But again, a lot of it is kind of Roger Waters', vanity project, basically. So I'm not even sure if Richard Wright's even on this. It's just weird. But anyway, Final Cut. I love Pink Floyd, but it's push comes to shove, I still would probably listen to The Wall as much as The Wall's bloated over it. That's number 19. Number 18, I'd love to get a physical copy someday. It's the Sneak Preview, which Sneak Preview, they'd previously been in The Edge, and then eventually Sneak Preview changed their name to King's X. But their debut album, which features a number of tracks that were, not a number, but a couple tracks that were re-recorded. And it's raw, it sounds, they weren't detuning their, Ty didn't detune his guitar, and Doug didn't detune his bass at that point. It's more of the Police kind of new wave, not so much punk, but, it's not amazing. The production is what it is. It sounds like early 80s, like a band putting out their first album. But it's still King's X, and there's still some decent music on it. I forget The Door, that's my go-to, which they did a song on Ear Candy that basically used that same melody, and they just changed some of the lyrics. But Media Man, You're the Only One, I like some of it. It's raw, and it's a project that it doesn't sound like the way King's X would sound, but it's still the members of King's X, so it's still Doug Pinnick. Although I know Ty did almost as many vocals on this as Doug, because Doug maybe was a little still shy singing. As a lead singer to become like they all sing, but Doug does the majority of the vocals with King's X. So That's number whatever, number 18. Number 17, the debut album from Savatage, Sirens. Um, I've never spent a lot of time with this record, but when I've heard it, I've liked it. The title track especially is great. I mean, it's like early power metal, influenced by new wave of British heavy metal. Raw, but I mean, actually, the production for a debut album isn't too bad. So yeah, I mean, they would do many better things even with John Oliva as the lead singer, but it's not terrible. I mean, some people really liked it. They like it better than the record that followed, actually, Power of Night. Number 16, I don't have a huge preference. I guess I probably would lean towards Sirens, but John Oliva's voice, wasn't so shot at that point, which is interesting. Number 16, you have Lionel Richie and Can't Slow Down, one of the first 5 tapes I ever bought. Of course, it has Hello and it has All Night Long. Those were the 2 biggest well-known songs on this. And the other ones, that was why I bought this tape when I was a kid. This is the same copy. The only one I think it is, Stuck on You. Yeah, Stuck on You also got some radio play. But yeah, I mean, some people that, love the Commodores didn't really love Lionel Richie's solo stuff as much just because it was softer. But, I was like 7 or 8 years old when this thing came out, and I heard Hello frequently on the radio and All Night Long. I mean, Fiesta, Forever, and for nostalgia purposes alone, it has to be on this list. And, anyway, Lionel Richie, Can't Slow Down, number 16. Number 15, okay, now I have a bunch of records I don't have. Iron Maiden's Peace of Mind, which I've only listened to a couple times. I revisited today. It has The Trooper. It's got a few really good tracks. I still kind of feel with Iron Maiden that they have kind of a sort of a one-note homogeneous sound, even with Dickinson. Dickinson's a better singer than Paul Di'Anno, but The Trooper is super catchy, and that's probably the signature Iron Maiden track, and for that alone, it also has the last track, the second album in a row, they ended with a really great progressive track, To Tame a Land. And I do really like Revelations, Flight of Icarus, When Eagles Dare, Revelations especially. So, Maiden I think is a band that, I love Fates Warning, Queensryche, Rush, of course, some of the other metal, Maiden's a band that I think I probably enjoy, like Zappa, the individual songs more than their albums at this point. Even though Number of the Beast would be the one I would go to, but anyway, yeah, number 15, Yeah, number 15, Iron Maiden. Number 14, Metallica's Kill 'Em All. Similarly to Maiden and, it's the debut album, and Savage's Sirens, it is a product of the era, even though it was the first Metallica album, and I've more respected Metallica like Maiden than been that into them. But I know they would do better things than this, but for a debut album, it's still okay. It's interesting, you listen to Hetfield's vocals on this album, and he doesn't, you could hear the influence from, Ronnie James Dio, and he sounds obviously a lot younger, so I don't know, when I was going through Spotify the other day listening to this, I highlighted a couple of the early tracks. Hit the Lights, The Four Horsemen, Seek and Destroy is another one. I know people that love this. It just sounds so raw. I mean, I know they were doing thrash metal. They were basically inventing thrash metal. They were the progenitor of thrash metal, so it was super fast. Sometimes the super fast is totally worse. Super fast parts, the thrash beats and those. I know that Dave Mustaine wrote a lot of it, even though it's Kurt Hammett playing a lot of the solos and everything. But yeah, number 14, Kill 'Em All from Metallica. Number 13, David Bowie's Let's Dance, which mostly for those first 3 tracks, the title track, I don't know, Nile Rodgers, I guess, worked on that. Modern Love and China Girl. Yeah, I mean, those are the radio staples on it. The rest of it, the Cat People track and everything is okay, I guess, but, anyway, David Bowie, number 13, Let's Dance. Splitting hairs with a lot of these records. That's why they're really more just like honorable mentions, of course. Number 12, Dio's Holy Diver. The title track I've always known, I've always liked. who's it? Vivian Campbell played a lot of the guitar solos on this, and it's kind of hit and miss. For a debut album, it's pretty good. I do think though that, let's see, Stand Up and Shout, Caught in the Middle, Don't Talk to Strangers. The problem with Don't Talk to Strangers is the track itself is really good, but the cymbals clip, so the production is not good. Rainbow in the Dark, that's the other really kind of banger pop, song that got known among Dio's catalog, the canon of, you have the title track to Holy Diver and then Rainbow in the Dark would be my go-to. Straight Through the Heart is another one that I like. I like this record. I can't say I like too many other Dio records. I really know, I've spent time with them, but, the Holy Diver is sort of signature, the artwork. There's someone on YouTube that did a whole thing with, like, artwork, kind of, there's like, showed like a graphic novel with it, so I'd like to read that, actually. Number 11, the Pointer Sisters album Breakout. Super nostalgic, and it has their 3 big hits. Well, yes. Automatic, Jump, which, looking at it, actually, the Van Halen song came out the next year, Jump, so it's kind of weird. It was really Jump, Jump for My Love. I don't know if the Van Halen had released that single at that point. I know there was a little controversy where they couldn't call their song, they didn't want to call their song Jump, so they call it Jump for My Love, but that doesn't make sense from a standpoint of the release dates, because this came out in 83 and 1984 with Jump. Van Halen's came out in 84, but it also has Neutron Dance. Those are the 3 like pop staples off this record. There's a version that came out in 84 with I'm So Excited, but I'm So Excited was the name of the previous record. So and I listened to this today, and the rest of this record is just okay. I mean, I like some of the tracks, like Telegraph Your Love and Easy Persuasion. Like some of the synthesizers, was it the drummer? There's some guy that, he's a hired gun that played with a lot of people. I was looking at Jewish dude. Forget the guy's name now, but Breakout. I those 3 songs, I just remember on Blackish, of course, Jennifer Lewis's character was the mother of Anthony Anderson, I believe. She said how she thinks that Automatic is greater song than Eleanor Rigby, which I don't know if I'd go quite that far, but Automatic is a damn good song. The arrangement's great. Mark Goldenberg, he's the guy. That guy's a kind of a clinician on this. And I was looking at his page on Wikipedia, and he played with like Jackson Browne and Linda Ronstadt, and he was a very popular hired gun to play guitar, because the guitar parts sound kind of like Nile Rodgers. I was thinking it was Nile Rodgers, but anyway, number 11, the Pointer Sisters Breakout. Number 10, you have Genesis with, what do you want to call it, the self-titled, the Mama album, the Shapes. Features Mama, features That's All, features Illegal Alien, and Home by the Sea, and the second Home by the Sea. It's good. It's Taking It All Too Hard sounds like a Phil Collins solo song, of course, because Phil's solo career had been starting to really become huge at that point. So it's like, is it a solo song or is it for Genesis? But I like it. I mean, I think overall it wasn't as good as the follow-up a couple years later, which was their biggest record, of course. But yeah, it's a decent record. It's not in comparisons to the progressive stuff, but the 70s, obviously. Gabriel, most notably, even Duke, by comparison to Duke. But I think it's better, actually, than Abacab in a lot of ways. Even though I don't have a copy of it. I mean, it's kind of splitting hairs, but, I have a copy of Abacab. I never end up picking a copy of the self-titled Genesis. So number 9, we have Pat Metheny, one of a couple live albums in here. Pat Metheny's Travels, which I bought this number of years ago. I don't know, it was like 2011. I found it at Half Price Book for $1. And looking at this and listening to this today, I listened to it. It's a little disappointing. Danny Gottlieb's the drummer, of course, so you don't have Paul Wertigo yet. It was right before that. It was right on the Off-Ramp tour, but it only has the opening track. Is it Are You Coming With Me, or Are You Ready to Go, or whatever it's called? That's the only one that's from Off-Ramp, which is just weird. And this record you frequently see in the Pat Metheny section. Are You Going With Me? Yeah. And I'll admit that while it has its highlights, the stuff that I like, the stuff that I know, stuff like Phase Dance, which comes off of the self-titled Pat Metheny Group album, And there's one other one on here, but it doesn't. The track list is San Lorenzo. Yeah. Some of the synclavier synth stuff works. I do like the second track with the Fields of Sky, but some of it kind of meanders, and like he does play most of it. It says going ahead into As Falls Wichita, So Falls Wichita Falls, which I don't have that record. I've never heard it. I haven't spent time on Spotify. I need to listen to it, but that's a 16-minute piece. The studio version I was looking at was like 20 minutes for that. It's not bad, but I mean, people worship that record. They love it's one of their favorite Pat Metheny pieces. I think it's just okay. I think it's more subdued. A lot of this record is subdued, and so that's why this isn't the best Pat Metheny live thing I ever did when I saw him do The Way Up. But I mean, it's interesting because he had Lyle Mays, but he didn't have, he had Danny Gottlieb instead of Paul Wertigo. So anyway, that's why it's only at number 9, because I love Pat Metheny. When Pat Metheny's good, he's really good. I mean, that one track, not San Jacinto, Phase Dance. Oh, it's the harmonics on that are dreamy, and it works even better live, I think. But as a whole, it was kind of hit and miss at best. Number 8, we have Huey Lewis and the News with Sports, which was kind of the breakout record. And when I found out about it, I didn't buy it. My friend Mike, a good friend of mine named Michael, growing up, bought it though. But this has Heart of Rock and Roll, Heart and Soul. If This Is It, that was like the first Huey Lewis song I think I ever heard. And I Want a New Drug was massive. Of course, Ray Parker Jr. with Ghostbusters basically borrowed it, but. And I don't know if push comes to shove, this is necessarily my favorite Huey Lewis. Like Iron Maiden, it turned out Huey Lewis was more about the songs, but I mean the one after it's the one that I have the most nostalgia and connection to. But this is the one that I was introduced to his music, and Huey Lewis and the News. But yeah, great 80s pop rock. I mean, he should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but he's famous for fame standpoint. And of course, the Back to the Future soundtrack is my favorite thing that Huey Lewis ever did. Those two songs. Number 7, I didn't revisit this. I haven't listened to this in ages, but the Peter Gabriel album Plays Live, which, that was supporting the Security tour. Like, I don't know if it was on one show. Like, the Pat Metheny thing was like 6 different locations, but on the same tour. I think this might have been just one show. I could be wrong. I mean, it has a lot of the best-known songs from that point. Salisbury Hill, Shock the Monkey, Biko, of course he does Biko. Intruder, let's see, I Have the Touch, what's the other one? Family in the Fishing Net. San Jacinto, he had to do that. So, it's that early Gabriel lineup with Larry Fast and, of course, Tony Levin, and it was not Steve Gadd, Jerry Marotta, who was the drummer, I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's Gabriel live, and after seeing him finally live, he's an amazing live performer. So even though he got maybe more well known for his live performances, maybe in the 90s, that Secret World tour was just massive for some people. That's their go-to Gabriel for a lot of people. But the Peter Gabriel's live album is very good. So number 6, I don't have a copy of it at this point. I was revisiting. I haven't listened to it in many years, like almost 20 years. U2's War, which features Sunday Bloody Sunday and there are other, like, Sunday Bloody Sunday and New Year's Day. Those were the biggest 2 hits, but every song on this record is great. I mean, I've always kind of felt like it took the next album that U2 kind of broke through, or the next album, the one after. Basically with Unforgettable Fire. But this record I've slept on some, and so I'm kind of thinking that War, while I don't know if I still will like it as much as sort of my top 2 or 3 U2, it definitely is in the top 5, and it definitely is much better than any of the albums that have come the last 20 some odd years. I would say. Seconds, that's another one that was a single, I know. Drowning Man, Surrender. I mean, U2 at this period they were hitting on all cylinders. Even though I think the Edge's guitar tone, he hadn't really kind of completely kind of discovered or found his distinct guitar tone. I think it really took to the next record. But yeah, I love this record from U2, War. It's, I don't know if it's a concept album, but it's one that I probably could even go higher. So that's number 6. Number 5, Duran Duran's well, the follow up to Rio, which I don't know if I would put this above Rio at this point, but this was like Huey Lewis, The News of Sports. This is the album that I know. That was my brother and I. We were growing up. I like Huey Lewis. He liked Duran Duran. This is the album that he got first, I believe. I think he did. It's got The Reflex, which that was like the main Duran Duran. Like I Want a New Drug was Huey Lewis' song. The Reflex was that track that we heard. I mean, some of these other songs were pretty well versed and we heard a lot, like New Moon on Monday, Union of the Snake. Let's see here. I'm looking for Cracks in the Pavement. But as a whole, I think Rio is a superior record because it just from beginning to end. But maybe a couple of the tracks on here are almost better than anything on Rio, or as good as anything. But anyway, yeah, Seven of the Ragged Tiger, one of the best Duran Duran records, and it comes up at number 5. For 80s pop, 1983 was like the year of Duran Duran and Huey Lewis in some ways from a pop stand. You'd say Madonna maybe, but it was between, of course, Purple Rain came the next year, and you could say that, Thriller was the highest selling record of that year, but I mean, it's like, well, if we're not going to listen to Michael Jackson, we're not going to listen to 1999 for Prince, what are we going to put on? Well, we'll put on Madonna, or we're going to put on Duran Duran or Huey Lewis for pop. And then MTV, too, of course, or Friday Night Videos in my case, because we didn't have MTV. So number 4, the debut EP from Queensryche, a favorite of mine with the early Queensryche when I first got into them. This is the one I listened to the most, even though I sort of thought this was a full length, but it only had 5 songs. I think it's 4 songs. It only has 4 songs. It has Queen of the Reich, Lady We're Black. Those are like the staples, but Knight Rider. Yeah, I mean, it was heavily influenced by the new wave of British heavy metal, of course, by Iron Maiden, by, Dio, Sabbath, the usual suspects. But Jeff Tate had this sort of soaring voice that kind of stood out in some way. And, some of this reminds me of Black Sabbath, actually. It's like a falsetto singer singing with Black Sabbath in some ways. I love this. It's actually, the acoustic, some of the guitar passes are very progressive. So anyway, Queensryche's debut album, debut EP rather, number 4. Number 3, I don't have a copy, but The Hurting from Tears for Fears, which, and I'm not a massive Tears for Fears fan, but I mean, compared to, say, like Duran Duran, I probably like them when ironically, the two of them toured together. I like them more. Like, even in excess, it's almost like a push. But, of course, it has, it's most well-known probably for Mad World, but Pale Shelter was the first single. Memories Fade, Suffer the Children. There's a lot. The song Change is very progressive. The title track. It's an album that I've listened to and I've enjoyed. I don't like it as much as the 2 records that followed it, but I understand why people like it. It's almost like they're Off the Wall, whereas they got massive with the next one. Off the Wall from Michael Jackson sort of, over time, kind of became a more favored album from fans that are really into Michael Jackson. You could say the same thing about Tears for Fears. A lot of the really big Tears for Fears fans love this album, and I understand why. But, there's a debut album. I had heard it a bunch of those songs. Start of the Breakdown. Yeah, I mean, it's... you could tell they were fans of, like, whatever, Genesis or Pink Floyd. I mean, besides being in a new wave, and maybe XTC. Although Kurt Smith, I think, sings more on this than Roland, which between the two of them, I actually like Roland's voice more, but he was kind of finding his voice at that point. So that was number 3. Number 2, now this is the one, like, release I was saying was, like, basically their peak, and it's the final album from this band. The Police's Synchronicity. Fantastic record. While I borderline love every Police album after listening to a lot of them over the last month and change. This has more of my favorite songs than any of their records. I mean, Every Breath You Take has been overplayed, and the whole sort of stalker thing is, I don't think about that much, but it has Wrapped Around Your Finger. It has Synchronicity 1 and Synchronicity 2. When I first got into the Police with my friend in high school, that was my go-to. It was like them doing, it's always sounded very progressive. Even just the lyrics were very kind of artsy and imaginative and creative. Walking in Your Footsteps. There's just this album. I just felt like they kind of. It's almost like they're like what Jellyfish did with Night at the Opera. Not that. The example of the band that sort of put everything into their last. Jellyfish, no, not the opposite. Jellyfish did with Spilt Milk. They put everything into their last record because they knew it was probably could be their last record. And while I wouldn't call it an absolutely perfect record, I think it's sort of from a production standpoint, sort of a creative standpoint. Oh my God, some people don't like that song. King of Pain's another one. I love the guitar solo in that track. Tea in the Sahara is dreamy. Mother, Miss Gradenko. This is it's one of the records that as I listen to it more and more, because I used to just listen to the stuff my friend would play, which was like a mix. He gave me a compilation or mix of their songs, but no, I kind of feel like the Police kind of just slightly took baby steps and got better with each record, but it's a little bit like Rush or Kansas or someone where I don't feel like this is dramatically better than, say, like Zenyatta Mondatta or something like that. It's slightly better, and again, it has a couple more of my favorite. I mean, Wrapped Around Your Fingers, that, or I go back and forth between that song and Spirits of the Material World. Love both. I mean, the best Police songs are just fantastic. So, and what's going to be number one? What do you think? The album I did a video on about a month and a half ago. It is Marillion Script for Jester's Tear. I'm a fanboy. They're my favorite band. As much as I have criticism for this album, especially if you consider the remaster that came out in whatever was 98, that included Grendel, although the version of Grendel is not the best version of Grendel, but I mean, it has the title track, it has The Web, it has Garden Party. Those are my three favorite go-tos. A lot of people love He Knows You Know, which was a single. Chelsea Monday, Forgotten Sons. I mean, people praise, the prog scene continue to praise this album. And, I think, push comes to shove, I could actually see myself putting Synchronicity as number one and this number two, because, I mean, I still like it. I'm not worn out on it. I guess it's a tough sell from a standpoint of my feeling about it, because the fact I love not so much the next album, but the two after that with Fish, and then so many of the H albums more. But just evaluating it objectively and on face value, it's still probably better than every record that came out in 1983 for me that I've heard, beginning to end, because it's still my favorite band, and I know it's Mick Pointer and stuff like that. But it was a very important record because it kind of saved progressive rock, even though it went underground. I mean, you had the whole neo-prog scene in England with, Palace and IQ and Twelfth Night, but this was the one that got the most, exposure, and at least in England, the record labels and radios like, progressive rock, well, it was a thing of the 70s, still can be relevant. And Garden Party was a kind of a minor hit, but my favorite track is probably the title track still. But I don't understand why people don't mention The Web, though, because The Web is clearly my third favorite track on this album, and people rarely mention it. I know some people that think it's probably the worst song on here. Anyway, which was the name of the mailing list that they originally created, and then eventually the email list in the 90s that was around. One was called Freaks, but one was called The Web, I think. Go figure. So that's it for 1983. What are your favorite albums from 1983? I'd love to know. On to 1984, my goal is to try to make, these at a higher frequency. I've been kind of consumed by some different stuff recently, between obviously doing the Kevin Gilbert Thud track videos and the anniversary stuff and the milestone anniversary albums. So once all that stuff is passed, I'm hoping I can start to do maybe at least 2 of these a week. The other thing is, I think a lot of these will probably be a little easier to do once we get into the late 80s and then the 90s, because I'm not going to... I know a lot of those albums a little bit better. I don't know. We'll see. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.